All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk Office Hours Hunting for Silver Linings for this Friday, June 12th, 2020, hosted today by Corey Hart. And we have George Katsanos, who will be joining us a little bit later with the global market update that we usually start in the beginning, but we're going to finish up with that. And then we're also joined today by Zain, chapter director from Pakistan. And so excited to have him with us today. We are brought to you by Startup Grind, and that is the world's largest startup community. We have 600 plus chapters in over 125 countries, and we operate with a mission to educate, inspire, and connect. And we're also driven by three specific values. That's make friends, not contacts, help others before you help yourself, and give before you take. Now, we started this program because the pandemic has been and will continue to be the great global leveler. And as entrepreneurs, we do our very best for our businesses, our teams, and our families. And to do that, we need to be informed, rational, analytical, and rigorous in our thinking. We should also learn to control our biases as they emerge in various circumstances. We invite you to join us live, if you like, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as we track the intersection of facts, biases, and action through our review of global financial markets alongside check-ins and real talk with the Startup Grind chapter directors, entrepreneurs, and ecosystem stakeholders from across the world. Now, we do this because no one has a crystal ball, but if you keep your eyes open and your ears open and pay attention, you may be able to see around the bend and with some luck, spot the silver linings that are around every cloud. If you miss the live events, you can always view the recordings at startupgrind.com/grand-rapids, where you can also download the reading notes from the show that includes news items and also some related market updates. Now, before I introduce George later on in the show, what we're going to do is cover some quick little housekeeping and then get into the interview with Zain. Comments made and views expressed by all participants in this podcast are not intended to invite or incite individuals, entrepreneurs, or investors to buy or sell financial assets, real assets, commodities, futures, and/or options. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform, not to trade or to invest. If you feel compelled to trade and/or invest, please call your broker. But remember, however, risk is everywhere, even when you think that you're not taking a risk. All right, now, with that, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce everyone to Zain from Startup Grind, Pakistan. Hi there. How you doing, sir?
Thank you so much, Corey, for inviting me. I'm great. Thank you.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you with us and really grateful for the generosity of your time. We like to start by asking a little bit of your personal background and then maybe how you find it, how you found Startup Grind.
So I'm an engineer by profession. I have bachelor's and master's degrees in electrical engineering, and I've been working with startups from the last 5 to 6 years. I worked in different roles, and currently I'm basically a co-founder of Let's Innovate, which is actually a services-based organization. We provide services to hardware prototyping, software development, and rapid prototyping to different clients, which are in Pakistan as well as globally. Other than that, I'm the director of operations at Role Miners. Basically, Role Miners is a social enterprise with the purpose to promote critical thinking and problem-solving skills in our kids. I've been doing that for the last 4 years. To come towards being the chapter director at WA, I actually got introduced to Startup Grind by attending a Startup Grind event, which happened in a large city, Islamabad, which was actually hosted by Arzish. So I actually got introduced to that. And one thing, since I'm from a small city, we have a population of less than 300,000. But the fun fact about my city, is that it's actually the most literate city in the country. So we have more than 90% of literacy rate. So I was quite amazed that I've been living here and we have so much talent, so many universities, colleges around, but there is actually no ecosystem. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people who have been working here, they either go to large cities such as Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, and other big cities, and they actually become part of those ecosystems. Primarily because there are more opportunities, large companies such as multinational companies, they're there, and even the startups, they are going towards those large cities. So one of the reasons to initiate that in my city is actually to promote, basically, and create a community of entrepreneurs and change makers
Mm-hmm.
and get to know who's working there. Because once I started, I didn't knew that someone was even working in startup involved. There was no group, no Facebook group. We didn't knew who was working where. So once we started the community, now we are getting invites from people that they are also from WA. They're
Wow.
being situated there. Either someone is in US, someone is in that country, and they were from WA and they would like to collaborate. So yeah, that was the main reason to start.
We have that same issue. We're Grand Rapids here, where I'm at, across the globe here on the other side. Same size of community as yours, and similar issues where we have a lot of universities, a lot of talent here, but they flee. It's like they flee to the cities.
Yeah,
Only now we're seeing, especially with the pandemic, that people are coming back. They're fearful of the urban environments and looking to to escape to back home, and this digitalization or of work is allowing them to still work at their jobs in the fancy buildings in the
yeah.
in the big cities, the empty buildings now, but from home. Yeah, so that sounds like like you're here at the perfect time. And you said that you're a fairly young chapter director, right? How long you been doing this?
I've been doing for the last 6 months or so.
And that's quite a bit of traction that you have so fast, right?
I think maybe a lot of people have been looking towards this.
Mm-hmm.
They have been trying to do something. Either they didn't got the initiative, they didn't knew that. But I had the opportunity to go to different cities and interact with a lot of people. So that I think maybe helped me out.
Right. Yeah, it helps to have that personal network that you can get things started with.
Yeah,
I want to talk a little bit more about some of the other things that you're doing, because it really proves that you have the experience and background to like really be that mayor of the startup ecosystem in WA. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the like the either the Let's Innovate, or specifically um, the robo-miners opportunities that you work with?
yeah. So I think at Let's Innovate, we have been working with clients globally, and there are some clients from the country. So I think what happened after a pandemic is that we now we're working from home. Uh, Nothing much has been changed in such a way that a lot of work that has been the development, either software or web portals or work that is based on software. So it's actually not a big deal to work from home. However, we have been working on different hardware-based things, which actually have been hard because we had been dealing with. We have to work to any in order to get stuff from hardware stuff. We have to go look towards China. That's the only place. So if you have to manufacture PCBs, if you have to buy some electronic equipment, you have to go towards China. That's this the only thing. So that thing actually hurt us because a lot of shipments have been delayed. We have been delayed for like 3 months in a lot of projects. So
Hmm.
this is what's happening in Let's Innovate. On the other hand, at RoboMiners, what we do generally is we work with different schools and we have our own campus where we conduct a lot of like weekend schools, coding camps. Our biggest event of the year is actually a summer camp. So that has been totally blown
Right.
away by the COVID. So what we did at RoboMiners is we now revamped our own whole strategy, and now we have been conducting for the last 2 months. We have been conducting online courses, coding courses. So and we have been working for like we worked with in 2 months we have been worked with around 150 kids. So that's like a total change of our strategy. Before COVID, we weren't doing anything. Like there were no options for online classes. But in order to like be relevant, in order to stay, in order to survive, what we did is we actually gone totally online, and we have been working online.
Now, that's an incredible pivot that a lot of people had to make, and it sounds like you had some degree of success there. I'm interested in hearing about um, like how successful that pivot was, especially because of any kind of infrastructure concerns. Like you had already mentioned like there's some supply chain issues, right? Due to
Yeah,
COVID. Can you
yeah,
talk about like say the infrastructure issues that might be related?
yeah. So what we did with the online courses is we actually selected those things which are don't require any external hardware. Generally, what we do is we do those robotic courses, those electronics based courses. So what we did is we selected our best programming courses that can be easily done, and because when a kid comes over to our campus, so we have all the equipment available, but in a normal school, like at home in Pakistan, we don't have those many gadgets. So what we did is we stick to the basics. The easiest thing that is required, which is actually a simple internet connection and a laptop. We stick to those courses. We did a first beta kind of alpha or beta kind of test run for with our small range of customers, and then we literally open it for a lot. So what helped us is that now we're not bound to any city. We have been
Mm-hmm.
using social media to market our courses across Pakistan, even to diaspora of Pakistani living in Middle East. We recently conducted some courses for Pakistani living in UK and EU. And now a lot of people from even Canada and US have been asking us,
Oh, that's
to conduct
remarkable.
courses. So that actually helped us, and because it's accessible uh, for everyone. All we need is just an internet connection and a laptop.
Right. Maybe since we landed there, you can talk a little bit about how your ecosystem is working with the others in Pakistan. So, like, so you got involved to Startup Grind through Arzish, and we had him on this program, a few weeks ago. It was great to hear what he had to say. But clearly, there's a lot of collaboration. Um, Maybe you can talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of collaboration happening at startup brand level, a lot, and over the country level, the collaboration it's happening a lot because all of us we know that the only thing that we can do is we can we can inspire young graduates and young people. And the other thing that we need is we need a lot of skills, people who have experiences. And unfortunately, the people who have very good experiences, they are either living abroad because of the issues that the country had, some terrorism kind of issues and some issues back in like a few years back. Now almost all those issues have been resolved. So a lot of people who moved out of Pakistan, they went either to EU region, US, Canada, or Middle East. So now, once everything is settling back, a lot of things are getting back to the pieces. So people are trying to come back. So now they want to know what's happening in the area and where they can get fit in. So these collaboration models that all the chapter directors and all the ecosystem and community builders are doing is basically helping them to come and to basically settle down and to even sitting back, planning for if they want to come back, giving them proper insights of what's the current state of our ecosystem as a country. This is what
That
actually the strategy is.
that's yeah, it's about getting, you got to get the word out and yeah, show people where the opportunities are and where they can get plugged in. Is there with that, are there people that are interested in coming in and investing, like whether they found success outside of the company or outside of the country? Are they interested in like really propping up the ecosystems or maybe their homes, they're where they're from in that way?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, like two things I think which we have. The first thing is like we have the fifth largest population in the world. That's a big market. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to leave that market. One, and I think the other thing which is like 65% of our population is actually in the ages of 20 to 30, which is actually the biggest number in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the skill set level is concerned, we have a lot of potential. On the other side, the ones who want to come back, they know that the market is there, the population is there, and they're actually targeting those areas which haven't been tapped yet. For example, just in the last 10 days, we had two investments in B2B marketplaces. Both the investments were in two B2B market startups, B2B marketplace startups, and they were around $1.5 million. And the investors, both the startups, the investors, they were pool of investors. Some were Pakistani diaspora, and the other one even from there, some even from Silicon Valley. So there's 5 to 6 investors. They pool the money in one startup, and 2 days later, another pool of investors, they invested in another B2B marketplace, almost $1.5 million, both of the investments. So one thing I think most of the people are looking towards is we have a model which is India, like our neighbors, and there are some markets like Indonesia, Malaysia. These markets are kind of, they have large populations and are in there. So maybe a lot of investment that has been happening or going to happen will be based upon the successes of those models.
Sure.
This is what's happening.
And are any of those, either of those startups in your region?
No, they're not in my city, but one is from Lahore and the other one I think from Karachi.
Sure. It's really good to see that, to hear those success stories, right? Because one of the best things that we can do as a community is talk about, the people that are doing it, so that others can sort of see themselves, like say, well, if they can do that, there's opportunity for me. I'm still so captivated by some of your personal story. I would like to hear you talk about the project that you have going, addressing food insecurity, because we heard, especially in our last program when we talked with the chapter director from Gaza, that it's important to provide context on what's happening in the regions, and also try to maybe inform people so they don't have very typical, stereotypes, right? And what you're doing with that, with your organization for food insecurity is really interesting. Especially the tech is how you approach that with technology and to overcome infrastructure issues.
Yeah, sure. So actually, the name of our organization is Fast Mehman. It's an Urdu term, which means special guest. So me and my friend, we wanted to do something for the food insecurity of people who are actually laborers. So there are a bunch of people who are actually refugees who lived near the Afghan border. Most of them are Pakistani, but they live near the Afghan border. So now they moved to those cities, nearby cities, and the only skill that they have is that they can do labor work. So generally, what they do is they sit down on at sunrise and wait for someone to come over to them, because they don't have any shops, nothing. So there's a place that sit down and wait for people to come to them, so that they can hire them, and those are daily wage workers. So whenever we were going to our offices, we used to walk from there, and it was quite difficult to see, because there were a lot of people who were who look around 60, 70-year old. It's very difficult for someone to sit. And those people are being living in our near city, and their families are living back home. So whatever they earn, small amount of money, they go to their homes after like months, 3 to 6 months. So what we did is we thought maybe what we can do is we can provide them with food. But one thing we realized is we shouldn't provide them with free food. That would be that wouldn't feel good. So what we did is if we could provide them food with 1/5 of their total price. So that's the number that we selected, so that they have to pay a small amount of money, so that they value that as well. So we did the small discount, and then the next thing that we did is initially what we did, we used to provide them with some discount slips. We used to go to them and then provide them with discount slips. But that actually, after a month or two, it was quite hectic, We didn't knew either we were giving someone two or there are a lot of people there. We didn't have any database, what's happening, how much money is we have, how much money do we owe to the restaurant if you're collaborating with them. So then what we did is we contacted a restaurant, we partnered with them, provided them a small phone with an Android app that we wrote. So whenever someone provided an RFID card to those laborers, so whenever they go to the restaurant, they don't have to say, they have to say that I'm gonna take a meal on discount. So they just simply go to the cashier and swipe their card, and the pop-up pops up which says the cashier to take less money. And they simply take the money, simply take their meal. They can either sit down, like, or take away, dine in or take away. So that's, I think, maybe one thing was we wanted them to be like, we don't hurt their integrity.
Right. It helps with the stigma, and
Yeah.
that stigma is an incredible barrier for people to accept help, right?
And in return to that, one small thing that we did is we asked them to volunteer for us in plantation schemes once a year or twice a year. So whenever we do some small plantation drives, we ask them, you have to come over and help with us, just to include them in our different activities as well.
Sure. Yeah, those opportunities for network and also community, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, value. That sounds, and this is just something that you started doing on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's incredible. And you also mentioned before we hit record that the model that you're operating this under is open for anyone to come and learn from and borrow and use in other regions or cities, right?
Yeah, so it's just an Android app. Anyone can install. We can send that app to anyone. Anyone can install it, and they can use it.
Cool.
It's an open source thing. Yeah.
Well, that's really awesome. Congratulations. That's a really powerful success story from the ground up. And so want to ask you just a couple last questions before we get into the global market update with George. We like to ask, what can the Startup Grind community globally, do for you there in Wa, Pakistan?
I think one of the things, for example, you invited me over, I would like to invite other directors and you as well for other virtual events. Because like this, the one thing that hurts a small city is like generally why young graduates and young entrepreneurs, they move to their cities because they think that they don't have any opportunities there, or they don't have access to a lot of people which is quite easy in large cities. So with happening with the pandemic, and I think we are so much now, we have so much ease with Zoom and video calls and everything. Now I think a lot of things can be, even after pandemic, a lot of meetings will be virtual. So I think that this shift would help small cities, small chapter directors and small cities. So what I think the main thing that I would be needing from other chapter directors is to have to give their advice and to be accessible via call or video call, and to participate in different events of small cities.
Great. Well, yes, if you, whatever you need, and then I know, and George loves to say this also, when we close things out with the interview is whatever you need from us, we're a bottomless well. Just come to the well and drink.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
But with that, I do want to introduce George. George, are you able to join us? I know George had some technical difficulties, and it looks like he's on his phone. Hi there.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. Hello, Zain, good evening.
Hi, George. Hi, thank you.
The infrastructure problems that typically you find in emerging markets, you can also find here in the US, not least because of bandwidth, but also connectivity. Having said that, the perspective of today's financial markets is exactly the opposite to what we've been witnessing over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Namely, yesterday's massive sell-off is followed by a small, meek attention by equities to rebounds. We're only 0.5% across the board in the US. Asia closed lower, Europe closed lower, not substantially, but sufficiently lower to make people think and pause for a second about the depth of recovery. With coronavirus returning, we're going to see far more volatility in the markets, and particularly question the wisdom of simply pouring money into the system. Gold is trading at 1730, West Texas Intermediate at 36, Brent 38, and the only one of the commodities that seems to be doing very well is copper, which leads us to suggest that the global recovery will continue, albeit with starts and fits. Against this background, we will be presenting more material to read over the weekend. Unfortunately, the outlook is not particularly positive. As the Federal Reserve Chairman indicated, what we have ahead of us, at least for the next 2 years, is essentially zero interest rate policy, which means an effort to boost recovery. However, unemployment is going to be a major factor when we look into an economy that is 70% dependent on consumer spending. Let's hope that these policies are wise, and let's hope that the effort to recover remains consistent as opposed to hyperbolic and or anchored on excessive expectations. We know that COVID-19 is going to return, and we know that until we have a vaccine, we cannot expect too much from the consumer. So as one of the observers mentioned in the post Federal Reserve decision to keep interest rates unchanged on Wednesday, the engagement of households and the engagement of companies into the global economy. If this engagement remains meaningful, then the worst will be behind us soon. Otherwise, we could have a lot of volatility going ahead. Back to you, Corey.
Sweet, thank you, George. Yeah, we over the many weeks that we've been doing this, we continue to have a very cautious outlook, despite our optimism in the broad future. And I guess and Zain, I would be interested to hear about the mindset of your community there. What is the general feel and expectation that you're hearing from your community as they reach out to you, maybe for help?
I think it's a lot of panic situation right now. Nobody actually knows what's going to happen next. So, and generally, I think it's most of the people that I've been interacting or interact is young entrepreneurs and young graduates, because they, I think, that's what my area of interest is, to motivate them and to let them know what they, to basically let them know, like, what are the possible opportunities they have. And with COVID happening, I think one of the biggest problems that I've been seeing around in my community is, like, a lot of graduates have been, it's like they're just coming to the market, and they're seeing a lot of big companies actually, like Airbnb has 25% of their staff is so a lot of, like, two big companies, two unicorns, which are based in, basically their workforce is based in Pakistan. They actually also cut their team. So it's like when you hear those stories as a young entrepreneur, as a young guy, it's very difficult. But I think the most important thing is, and I think the most important realization is to basically optimize this time. If you're a business, you have to think of other possibilities of sustaining, and that's what I think my suggestion is, or whatever we have been discussing with the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, there's we see a lot of people upskilling. We see a lot of people pivoting for themselves. Um, and yeah, so do you have any final comments for us before we say goodbye? And then I'll open it up to George as well before we close.
Just thank you so much, George and Corey, for inviting me over. Had an amazing time, and hopefully, I'll be looking forward to interact with you guys, to learn from you guys, and to communicate and to reach out to you in case of any help or any advice.
Yeah, one thing that we will be doing on a monthly basis, we'll send out surveys to everyone that we've had visit and we visited with to get a continuous flow of information as far as like outlook, thumbs up, thumbs down,
Amazing.
neutral. And then also we'll be looking for, some really innovative companies that maybe you hear of or startups that might need some access to that, that early stage capital or follow-on funding because now is the best time for people from different regions to help others out,
Yeah.
right? And we're all looking for that silver lining. George, any last comments for Zain?
Yes, one of the reasons we always try to have an update of the financial markets design is because we believe that both entrepreneurs and investors should be aware of what is happening in the global economy. Despite the fact that national economies remain national, we do have undercurrents that transcend borders. As we have seen in our case through Startup Grind, we have developed a new globalized approach to information sharing and to building economic ecosystems that foster growth and innovation. The financial markets give us additional information about risk, reward, about trends in commodities, in energies, in grains, in bonds, in currencies, and so on and so forth, which essentially tell us where the opportunities have been and where the opportunities may arise, where the risks have been and where the risks are lurking. To this effect, we encourage that all our entrepreneurs and investors keep an eye on global markets because we have been in uncharted territory for the last 3 months, and it is very likely that we will be in uncharted territory until we have a vaccine. Thank you very much for your contribution today. Have a very good weekend.
Thank you so much, George. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Zain. Really, again, so gracious and so of you to donate so much of your time. And we'll let you have the rest of your evening back. And yeah, with that, please have a great weekend. And I look so forward to continuing this this new friendship.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, George. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Ciao.